Sawyer. 1 John 1 and verse 3. Mom. And 1 Peter 2, 2 and 3. Amy, thank you. All right, so let's look at this in the thought of first and foremost, discipleship comes out of relationship. You cannot separate the two. There's people who try, and they want to do it through the internet or radio or what. It's impossible. It comes through genuine relationship. Philippians 1 and verse 8.
God can testify how I long for all of you with the affection of Christ Jesus.
Okay, I love, and he says there, with affection. So Paul isn't just saying it's relationship, there's a caring. This is very important to understand because relationships, it's easy to fall to default modes, to long-term relationships, to people you already have things in common with. When I was in Lithuania, it was something I had to strive at when we would have people who spoke English come to our services. It would be very easy for me to be pulled towards them. I don't have to explain to them that football is not soccer. I don't have to explain to them that kilometers, it's 1.5 and change, 1.6 kilometers to a mile. I don't have to explain to them how to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, right? It's a natural draw. And so that is true in human nature. We're drawn to people that we easily get along with. We easily relate to. That's not evil, but this is why, old friends, it's easy to connect with, talk to, we get our little groups together. But to make a relationship with another takes work. It takes time. There's effort involved. There's, sometimes you're feeling them out. You're learning. When I was overseas, it was easy. I remember I met a man on a plane. He worked for the Danish embassy in Lithuania. And we got chatting on a plane. We were waiting. I think it was delayed, so we were talking in the as we were waiting to get on and such. And thought, hey, this could work out. We went out to lunch. We realized we had nothing in common. Nothing, and so that ended that. But the reality, because I tried to witness to him, and I don't even know if he may have been a double agent for all I know and trying to recruit me. I have no idea. There was some of that going on, and it was. I look back and I go, oh, that's what that was about. But anyway, there were all sorts of things going on, and it takes work to build a relationship. Right? And anyone who's ever dated knows there's the awkwardness, there's there's all of that that's involved in building a relationship. So when we're talking about follow-up and building that relationship, taking time and effort, because you got to find common ground. If I talk to some people now, I know what the common ground is. I know what they're interested. I know that maybe they're not interested in guitars as I am, but they're interested in whatever. And so find some common ground to talk to with and people. So relationship, to care for people. It takes time. It takes patience. 1 Peter 1, verse 22.
You were cleansed from your sins when you obeyed the truth, so now you must show sincere love to each other as brothers and sisters. Love each other deeply with all your heart.
So one of the marks of Christianity is a love for other people, a genuine concern. Now, I think Pastor Robinson mentioned, at least when we were fellowshipping, we were joking about it, but I think he mentioned it in one of the sermons. I don't have to like you, but I do have to love you. Right? And there's a truth to that. There's a Christian truth to that, that, you're not going to be besties with everyone. But there is an obligation to love, to care, to be concerned for their eternal soul. It's a distinctive of the Christian life. Jesus says this, John 13 and verse 35.
Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples.
The mark. He doesn't say, which is interesting to me, that he says the proof of genuine Christianity is love. It's not tithing or prayer or witnessing or church attendance. He says it's going to be a love, because I believe you can do those things. Those are outward things. You can do those and not have any love, right? It's easy to do the outward. Muslims pray 5 times a day. If you go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, except when air sirens are going off, which Iran probably won't hit Jerusalem because they don't want to be the ones to hit the Dome of the Rock. And so they don't want to hit that Muslim site. So they're going to just aim for Tel Aviv mostly. But we'll talk about that tonight. But the reality of prayer, lots of religions pray. They have prayer meetings and such. You go to church, Mormons pay their tithe. There's other, you can do the outward things that would be associated with being a Christian. Going to church, Catholics go to church. I think it was interesting statistics when we were there. In the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, which I won't get into all the politics, but it's a separate, it's still under British, there's 6 counties that are under British rule on the island of Ireland. And the sectarian violence that's there, the Civil War, is really cut down on religious lines. Now what that means is that the Protestants are loyal to England, and the Catholics are loyal to the Republic of Ireland. So the line was drawn in England. Over the last few years, it's about 4% of the population that goes to church. In Ireland, it was 80%, because of the religious divide, your whole identity. Now, I believe since the Troubles have stopped, people have stopped going to church, and they're less identifying with a group of that, because basically the IRA and the UVF have boiled down to gangs, is what they are. They're mafia gangs now. There are Bloods and Crips and Al Capones, if you will, of that day. That's all they become. And so, but the reality of what just going to church doesn't make you a Christian. He says there has to be a mark, and this mark, Jesus says, is that all men will know, this is what the King James says, that you are my disciples because of love for one another. And so it's hard to build a relationship with someone that you don't seem to have a lot in common with. And this is why I mentioned, I believe that relationships is an art, not a science. And what I mean by that is that scientifically, you can always plug in the same formula and get the same answer. But the reality of formulas is that it doesn't work with people. You can't treat a 13-year-old boy the same way you treat a 70-year-old woman. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You can't plug in and deal with people. You can't deal with a married person like a single person. You can't deal with, people of, this could be education, this could be background, this could be family situation, this could be all sorts of things. Were they raised in church, or are they coming in as just a sinner that had no idea? Whatever it might be, you can't deal with people the same. And so to build a relationship is sometimes different. Sometimes you just don't even, you can't, their personality is tough. I won't pick on him, but one man that's in our congregation, his transformation has been amazing, because when he first came in, all he'd do is grunt at you. Hey, bro. How are you? Oh. And now he's a, thriving member and doing well. He's been involved in drama, and just a miracle of transformation of what God did. But it was tough at first. It was hard. It was like, hey, you ever had the awkward conversations of the people who won't engage, so they give you like one-word answers? How are you? Okay. I had one guy in Lithuania, one couple, and God bless them, they're still there, but you'd ask him, how you doing? Not so good. And I'd always ask him, what happened? You lose your dog? You lose your job? Did your car die? No. Mom get sick? No. Just the way he is. And he married a girl who, I was told before they got married she wasn't that way, but she became that way. And it was like, this was hard to talk to him. It was like these one-word answer, and it's like, I gotta love you, man. I have a hard time liking you because, listen, I know as a Christian, not every day is perfect. But if there's anyone in the world that should have hope and joy, it's a Christian. And those two were lacking there and such. So, this is when the ingredient of love takes it from duty to caring. This, is something that's very important. So let's ask the question then, how do you develop love for people? Because in and of ourselves, that's difficult. You ask God, or let's take that even a little bit further. You ask God for them. When you begin to pray for someone, it'll change your heart towards them. It'll change your heart towards them. Are people full of problems? Absolutely. Do they have issues? Absolutely. Do you have problems? Yep. Do you have issues? Yep. As we all do. But when you begin to pray for them, take their name and put it before the throne of God. God, they need help. It changes your heart. Jesus prayed for his disciples on more than one occasion. Here's the perfect Messiah who is putting all of his proverbial eggs in one basket, if you will. As I preached on Easter, the 3 days that the world hung in the balance, because there was no plan B. If these guys didn't get it, we wouldn't be here. Right? These 11 disciples that are left after Judas left, everything is riding on them understanding. And even after they see the resurrected Messiah, they're still going fishing. They're still struggling with some things. Peter's personal failures, and I'm sure others had failed as well at that moment, because it said they all scattered, all probably except John, who was still at the cross, we know. But all the rest of them seemed to be gone. So where did they go? What did they do? We don't know. What did they say? Were they hiding? Whatever it was. And so love, prayer changes things. Prayer changes your heart towards someone. And so it's critical to pray for people. And that's why, when you're not praying for someone, it's easy to talk about them, complain about them, be angry at them. It's easy. Because we're not putting them before the throne. We're not putting them in a place. So that's excellent. That's the first, and I believe one of the most important steps. What is another way to learn to love someone? Aiden? Well, but time. Exactly. Time together. This is what you did when you were dating, right? If you're not dating, that's what dating is. It's discovery. Where are you, Garrett? It's discovery. It's you find out who this person is, and you spend time with them. And all of a sudden, I remember when we were, getting married, my wife and I, and this is like back when dinosaurs just had gone extinct. But anyway, we had been so busy planning the wedding, involved in church activities, life, working, moving, all of these things, and long story short, we got together. We spent. It was an unplanned. It was a snow day. We had a blizzard. Work was canceled. It took me hours just to dig out of my new apartment because we lived in a basement apartment in the snowdrift. When I opened the door, the snow was about 6 feet high over that door. And we didn't get 6 feet of snow, but it had drifted that way. And so, honestly, the first thing I did was I was shoveling it out and bringing it into the house and putting it in the shower to melt and go down the drain because I couldn't do anything else with it. Then I got through a little bit, started digging out and getting to my car and such. But we had this unplanned day off, and we spent some time. And I remember just talking with her about our future and such. And it was one of those moments that it was like, yeah, this is why we're getting married. It was like in all the busyness, we forgot that. And a great way to learn this is, as Aiden said, is in ministry. Because it forces you to a common mark, a common goal, whether that's a band or an acting troupe or learning equipment or an outreach together that or whatever it might be that you're spending time together that you begin to find, and at first, you might find, they like the team you hate or, and so it's like, but, we had at least that sport we have some common, you begin to find some common ground that, something, you like cars too, I had a car like that, something that you begin to find a relationship with and begin to build on that. And so there's prayer, there's time together. What's another way? Mike? Oh. That ever happen to you in class? Like, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. Happened to me all the time. Mom? You open up to them. Excellent. Yeah, that's good. My last thought that I have, which I don't know that this is a perfect list, but is to invest in them. Isn't it interesting, the difference between a rental and when you own something? Right, a rental car, you don't. I have never checked the oil on a rental car. I've never looked at the tires to worry about the tread. It's just never. I mean, other than when you first get into it, so you don't get charged for it later. But never, no concern. But as soon as you invest in it, you want to take care of it. And so, this could be a meal. This could be a gift. I remember Sabre Stockdale was an older woman in the church. She owned a Christian bookstore. She, gave me a Bible. And that investment, when I would go back, I would always, she was in her 90s. She's passed away, but I would always look for her to say hello and talk to her. On the surface, I was an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 18-year-old kid. She was a grandma. On the surface, we don't have much in common. We played for a short time in the same band together, but just a real short time. And after that, it was like, but she became a special person to me because she invested. So there's numbers of ways that this begins to change our heart. And then when you're talking about follow-up too, one of the major concerns that you have to have is their growth, their personal growth in Jesus Christ. And there are, 1 John 1 and verse 3.
We proclaim to you what we ourselves have actually seen and heard, so that you may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ.
Now, it's fine to begin to find some common ground outside of simply Christianity. Nothing wrong with that. To find you like this style of music, or you like this, sports, or this kind of car, or this kind of, you do this kind of job, or, you have this kind, whatever. You're finding some common ground. But the unfortunate reality is that that's often as far as follow-up goes. And it's never about trying to build them up as a Christian. The Bible uses the word carnal, fleshly, lower forces that are at work in all of us. Hatred, greed, bitterness. You'll find that those are common issues. Why? Because they lead to stealing, adultery, and murder. And Jesus then even takes this into the New Testament and says, if it's in your heart. So that's a whole another. The law might have been easier in some of those areas. It would have been easier, because if there's no body, there's no sin. But now Jesus says, if it's here, you're in trouble. Right? And so anyway. But these things are going. And so to build a relationship simply on other than to do with a spiritual atmosphere is going to cause people to end up with no spiritual understanding. That, there are fine things to do. There are, but I've known people who have had people over 100 times for steak and chicken and whatever, barbecue and such, and never once talked about Bible issues, like Barbara said, scriptures, witness, a testimony, what God's doing in my life, either past or currently. Right? It's only on the human level. And the problem with that is it has no heavenly or eternal impact. It has momentary impact and not lasting. And so, as one person said, I know a lot of people who spend time with other believers, and the problem is Jesus isn't usually invited. Right? That it never goes there. It never. I'm not talking about that every relationship and every conversation has to be about the Lord and the things of God. But some people, they never talk about the things of God with others. It's only about the surface stuff. And so people develop a taste, a craving. Right? It's natural. For instance, I was reading an interesting article a way back on football. And the Buffalo Bills is the number one team that people who move into this area, who maybe have an allegiance towards another team, will be won over. It's the number one team right now in the NFL that will cause people to actually vacate their old alliances and switch over. I don't get it, but that's me. But the reality, you know why? Because people around here are passionate about the Bills. They are. Probably more so, and they rank among the highest because they're that funny middle market. And what I mean by that, you go to New York City, there's so many things. There's 2 NFL teams. There's 2 NBA teams. There's 2 Major League Baseball teams. There's 2 hockey teams. There's a lot of divided loyalty. And you go to another place like Boston, who has one of each, but there are some Red Sox fans who could care less about football. And there are some hockey fans that really don't like basketball. Right? And so that's all fine. Basketball fans that don't like hockey, it's all fine. That's not the problem. But because the only other team around here is the Sabres, and they're usually the worst in the NHL, not making that fact up, and it's same owner, and he's spending all the money on the football team, it's contagious. And people develop a craving for it. That needs to be true in Christian fellowship. That you are whetting their appetite to begin to have a craving for that which is spiritual. The things of God. 1 Peter 2 and 3. Did I give that out?
Yep.
Okay.
Like newborn babies, you must crave pure spiritual milk so that you will grow into a full experience of salvation. Cry out for this nourishment now that you have had a taste of the Lord's kindness.
Okay, so Peter's saying here, you know what? You've tasted this. So you've got to develop a craving for that. And that's fine. People eventually have to do that on their own. But you have to serve it to them. You have to give it to them. Give them that opportunity to experience. You know, this is why a testimony of either salvation, this is what I was like before I was saved, but the Bible says anyone who's in Christ is a new creation, and now I'm this way. Or a current work in your life. You know what? We were praying for this particular miracle, and God opened a door, and now we were able to see or have or experience something that we weren't able to before because we prayed and saw this. And, and there's testimonies of what God is doing. You know, this since I've been the pastor of this church, and I know, there's 36 plus years of history before I got here and all that. I understand that, well aware of that, appreciate the men who have come before, and even some of them, they didn't end well, but they started well, and thank God for that, and all of that. But two of the miracles that are so exciting to still share is one is, of course, when we had the baby boom, and to see that miracle, and to know that God was involved in that. And the other, of course, is the building. God's providing and sharing at the last moment. This should have fallen all through, and someone on a handshake lends me $720,000. Who does that? On a handshake. And so, God coming through and doing what he wants to, those are current testimonies of what God is doing. And there are others. And the reason, those two came up is that we were, when the Robinsons were here, we were talking about some of those. And what God has done. And the miracles. And so those are worth sharing. Those create a taste for people. Wow, God could do that for you? God could do that. I get calls more early on. Time has gone by, but I would literally 4, 5, 6, 7 pastors call me. And I go, tell me how this worked. Tell me what you experienced. Tell me how God came. And I would share it to them. And they're like, wow, this is great. This power. I'm going to believe God for this. You can put out there the taste and create a craving. When my daughter was probably 1.5, not even 1, no, she wasn't even 1. One of the men in the church spoiled her, gave her ice cream. And was it ice cream or whipped cream? Steve. And so gave her a little bit, just a little taste. So she had this little taste of it, and then she's like, no, and it was like embarrassing. Because she can't talk. Because she got a little taste. And so this is important that you put out. This also means that you shouldn't brag about past sins and make that, I've shared with you my 3 not liking of a music scene testimony, right? When all they do is get up there and brag about their past life and end it with, I got saved and so should you. But the cars and the girls and the drugs, oh, it's great. I got saved, so should you. That's not a testimony. Second is when they preach. Give your testimony. Well, I was reading in the Bible and it says this, and God wants you to know. It's like we've got a preacher coming. That's okay. Just tell them what God did in your life. And the third is when they go on way too long. Too much information. You know what? We probably didn't need to know that about you. It's that you were a lonely, lost sinner, involved in things you shouldn't have been, and Jesus saved you and forgave you anyway. Right? And so we probably didn't need to know what happened when you were 3 years old. So, but those are the realities that create that. And so, this usually happens around meals and things like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not talking about being super spiritual, that everything is the spiritual. I don't, it doesn't all have to be spiritual, but it should have some measure of that. And so, this is important. Any questions to this point? Terry?
Any tips on leading conversations there?
No, but I think sometimes you just have to be bold enough to change the subject. Sometimes you just have to just throw it out there. I mean, I'll give you a personal experience that I was amazed with. we were with Logan, and and our flight got canceled from North Carolina, and so we went over to rent a car, and we found out like everybody over there, no kidding, half of the people over there waiting in line were all coming to Rochester for that flight. And it was weather, it was all sorts of things. We were returning from the Bible conference. And so we ended up finding some other people who were going to Rochester, and we're like, you know what? Let's just rent you pay this. And so we saved a lot of money together and had other drivers. It was great. And, I think, and we didn't know them. And so in the middle of it, where Carrie's bringing up trivia, but we had picked up a stray chicken, a little girl, met her, cute little kid to go into college, but she was going to Ireland College, and she had an Irish shirt on, and so I got talking to her about Ireland. Oh, live there, and where are you going, Rochester? We met her in Dallas. I think when we're in our layover, and we were going to Charlotte and then flying up to Rochester. And so she's like, oh, I'm going to Rochester too. And so she kind of became, my wife and I have this ability of finding people in airports who are lost, and they tag on with us. True story, when we were in Lithuania one time, my wife was asked to help this woman who spoke no English. We were going to the Amsterdam conference, so we were flying to Holland. And so, but this woman, she said, would you help them get to, they're going to, I don't remember where, but they needed to go through Amsterdam to get wherever they were going. And on the plane, this woman found about 3 or 4 others. So we get off the plane. We've got these 4 older ladies following us through the airport. They don't speak any English. We're really bad at Lithuanian at this point. Trying to communicate, trying to get them to their place. We can only take them as far as they had to go through a passport check, and then we were leaving the airport, and so we got them there. I hope they made it. I never read in the paper that anyone was lost there. So we're kind of, we just have this ability. And so we picked up that couple of guys coming back to Rochester. We're all in this van. First, we're all sleeping. We've been up all night. I drove the first half, turned it over to one of the guys. He said he looked in the rearview mirror. All of us are, sleeping. And then we got into Pennsylvania, and we're all kind of awake. We're all kind of getting anxious to get home now. And in the middle of it, Logan, out of nowhere, hey, that series called The Chosen, that's amazing, the life of Jesus. And he begins to just break into this conversation. Wasn't any conversation we're having. He's talking to me about it, but he's talking to me so they hear. And so sometimes you just have to do that. And I noted that. I was like, yeah, that was a good strategy. Because it was like, we were all tired. It was, we talked about coming back from a Bible conference, and I was preaching in Mexico, but working this all out. So sometimes you just have to break it. You just have to do it. You just have to change the subject. This is what we're going to talk about. We had neighbors that we had gotten friendly with in Lithuania. And we had witnessed to him first, and then we had had some meals together, and God began to deal with me that we'd kind of stopped witnessing to him. Juazis and Lama. And we knew some of and I remember we were sitting there on the sofa, and I just said, I'm going for it. And I just started directing the conversation and brought it to a decision. She had prayed, he didn't. But what God was doing. So sometimes you just have to break it through. You just have to make the decision. You know what? We've talked about politics long enough. We've talked about the economy. We've talked about the sports teams. We've talked about whatever long enough. Now we're going to talk about Jesus. Talk about what God is doing. So sometimes you just have to change it. Because you can, I understand trying to win people with kindness, but you've got to enter the gospel in there and the things of God. Otherwise, you just create an atmosphere for that. Anyone else? You know what? We're going to read one more scripture. We're going to look at one more, and then we're going to read 2 more scriptures, and then we're going to add a week to this test because we're not going to get through this morning. I might be able to get through. Let me see let me put it together for next week. But anyway, I need two scriptures. I need 1 Corinthians 8, 9 through 13. Sawyer and Carrie, would you get John chapter 1, 38 and 39? And so, in working with people, in bringing the gospel to them, in dealing with this, one of the key things you need is patience. That you have to understand that, you know what? It took you a little while. I love watching people sometimes where they get an understanding, a revelation, and then they're mad at everyone who doesn't have this. But the problem is, it took you 10 years to get it. Right? And so you have to work with people where they're at. And there's some people that you can tell them. Pastor Greg talks about when he was a young convert, a witness. He's in this car with this guy, and he's telling him everything that he knows about. He just got saved, excited about what God's doing, telling him. And at the end of the ride, the guy goes, I didn't understand a thing you said. Right? And so, he understood it all. And so that was great. But, sometimes it takes time. It takes the prayer. It does take a few times. Just like it probably took you a few times to get some things. It took me a few times to get some things. And so, it's funny. I've seen people, they miss services. They don't think anything about it, but they're quick to jump on someone else who maybe missed a service. Can't believe you weren't here on Wednesday. You should have heard that. Yeah, but you weren't here for the last 3 Wednesdays, It doesn't make sense. You got to have patience with people. And in discipleship, which we will look at and get to, there needs to be some level of correction. And that we have to deal with things. We're not going to let people come and, if they're not married and living together, we have a time limit that you've got 3 choices. One of you is going to move out, you're going to get married, or you can't come. Those are your 3 choices. Right? And so there does come to that. But other than that, having patience with people. Critical. 1 Corinthians 8, 9 through 13.
But you must be careful so that your freedom does not cause others with a weaker conscience to stumble. For if others see you with your superior knowledge eating in the temple of an idol, won't they be encouraged to violate their conscience by eating food that has been offered to an idol? So, because of your superior knowledge, a weak believer for whom Christ died will be destroyed. And when you sin against other believers by encouraging them to do something they believe is wrong, you are sinning against Christ. So, if what I eat causes other believers to sin, I will never eat meat again as long as I live, for I don't want to cause another believer to stumble.
Now, there's a lot going on here. This had to do with meat that was sacrificed to idols, and there were a lot of jobs that basically that your union was your temple, your false god. So if you left that temple, you lost your job, and so some would hang on to their jobs and sometimes be involved in these kinds of things, even as a Christian. But he's saying here that, you know what, you might not feel that, I'm just doing this for my job, I'm paying my tithe, I'm doing what's right, right? But you can't live an alternative lifestyle or condemn people or get in people's faces and things like that by your superior knowledge and cause them to stumble. I shared the story, I believe, recently about a man who was involved in Amway. Now, Amway is basically a pyramid scheme, the ultimate pyramid scheme. If someone's trying to get you involved in that, which seems to have gone by the wayside, they're still around. Their products are not bad, but you won't make money at it. They promise you all sorts of money, but you won't make money at it. So, and they have it's like a substitute gospel. They have their conferences and all of this kind of stuff. So this man gets saved. He's really, on a Sunday. And he came back Sunday night, and my wife says that she had seen such transformation in his face. Like he was different from Sunday morning to Sunday evening. He goes over to someone's house on Tuesday, and this person, Amway's it's a scam, it's and destroyed him. That we never saw him again. You know what? Amway won't send you to hell. It's a scam. It's a ripoff. It's a pyramid scheme. There's a lot to stay away from in Amway. But this isn't murder, adultery. Yeah, you could maybe stealing, but that's higher up the level. Right? This pyramid, just have some patience, man. But he's going to tell him what he knows about Amway. It's like Barney Fife from the old Andy Griffith show. Don't give that boy a bullet. Keep that bullet in your pocket. Don't put it in your gun, because you're going to hurt somebody. Right? And again, many times we can expect people to know in a short time what it took us years to figure out. And it's easy to be critical. I was sharing with this, and again, I got saved. My high school wardrobe, my mother's here, she can testify to this. My high school wardrobe was a chamois shirt, a concert t-shirt, and jeans. Right, Mom? That was my high school. Absolutely. That's what I wore. So I get saved. That's all I have is concert t-shirts. So I go to church one time, and with another guy from the band I got saved, I had my Santana t-shirt on. And he had his police t-shirt on. And so we're praying there, and this guy comes to us afterwards. True story. He's like, I can't believe it. I was worshiping God, and then I look up, and there's Santana and the police. And you guys should know better. True story. Wednesday night, we come to church. That guy is wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt. Craig McLaughlin said, "Did you see John?" I'm like, "Yep, and he needs to die." Because he had, I was like, and so we confront him. He's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that, Right? Now, we were all new converts. John got saved a week before Mark, and I got saved 2 weeks after Mark. It's like we were all new converts at this point. So it was, it wasn't a big deal. It's a great story, but it wasn't a big deal at the time. Everybody went on at that point. But here's the reality. Working with people, they're going to have problems and issues. Can you work them through without destroying them? And this is where care comes in. This is where prayer comes in. This is where investment comes in. Because it's easy. The gospel is a sword. You can hurt somebody with it. You could get into anyone's face with scriptures right away. You're not doing. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, 38 and 39.
Jesus looked around and saw them following. "What do you want?" he asked them. They replied, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" "Come and see," he said. It was about 4:00 in the afternoon when they went with him to the place where he was staying, and they remained with him the rest of the day.
So the lesson here, and I want to close with this, we'll pick this up next week, but is the reality of coming and seeing is better sometimes than being told. How do you witness? Come and see. What's a revival like? Come and see. What's a Bible study like? Come and see. How do you prepare a sermon? Come and see. How do you come and see? And it can absolutely be better. It's the old adage that truth is better caught, not taught. It's better when people come to that. You know, I'm one of the reasons I'm very thankful for, being YouTube is you can find things if you're trying to fix something or do something, you can watch somebody do it. I can read instructions, but I'm a visual kind of person, probably from my dyslexia. And, some of you get that later. But, that if I watch it, it makes sense. And so there's a reality in this. Come and see. And so, you really don't have a television? Yeah, come and see. You really don't? Yeah, come and see. You really do? Yeah, come and see. What's the fellowship? Come and see. Bible conference. Toronto, Cape Cod, Prescott, wherever. Come and see what we're about. Do more. I know people who've gone to conference and they could have heard 1,000 sermons and they didn't get out of 1,000 sermons what they got in sometimes one day of conference because they came and saw. Any questions, comments? We're going to have to wrap this up. Say, Cobra? Absolutely. But it wasn't just games. It was testimony and games, right? Alicia? Right. Excellent. And Mom? The woman at the well. Right? Come and see the man who told me all things.